Hello everyone. Today we will analyze the Pakistan market and discuss how does it affect Australia firms. I am one of the members of Group B and my name is Xiao Han. First, I will discuss how globalization affects Pakistan's political and economic system, focus on analyzing the political, economic, and legal systems, and explain how these changes occur in reality in the context of specific industries. Before globalization, Pakistan's political system was mainly determined by domestic factors such as a weak civilian government and strong monetary influence. However, in the context of globalization, fiscal and economic policies are increasingly constrained by internal conditions due to their dependence on the IMF and the World Bank. For example, in the energy industry, the IMF calls for the subsidies, cuts, and the reform of state-owned power enterprises, which improves efficiency, but also triggers domestic political pressure. So, identificating that globalization is changing the way political decision-making. In terms of the economic system, globalization has pushed Pakistan to be more open, and the economic has changed from state-led to the protect to export. The textile and clothing industry is the most typical example. It is deeply integrated into the global value chain, creating jobs and foreign exchange income. But it also makes countries highly depend on the international market's demand. The second example I want to give is that in the agriculture field, cotton prices are affected by the global market. The farmers' income fluctuate accordingly. The picture shows the fluctuation of the income of Pakistan farmers from 2060 to 2025. Therefore, globalization has improved competitiveness and increased economic valuability. In terms of the legal system, globalization has promoted Pakistan to revise investment laws and company laws to align with international standards. But the problem is not the law itself, but the implementation. For example, in the telecommunications industry, foreign-funded enterprises faced complex incentives and consistent supervision. And in the infrastructure projects, contact exclusion is no, and the delays are very, very serious. Therefore, the law looks like progress, but the actual implementation is still insufficient. This is also led to the legal challenges faced by Australia entering the Pakistan market. So I will explain the legal challenges of Australian enterprises from these three aspects. First, the law and contract enforcement are weak. Although Pakistan formally adopts the common law system, in practice, contract exclusion is no. Efficiency is no, and litigation may last for years, increasing corporate uncertainty and cost. Secondly, the reputations are unstable and implementation is inconsistent. Taxation, customs, and investment laws involving foreign capital change frequently, and the implementation standards vary from region to region, which poses a competence risk for Australian enterprises with transparent and stable customary laws. I have sought out Pakistan's legal adjustments to foreign trend in recent years. The frequency of the adjustment has brought uncertainty to the development of Australian enterprises. Third, the protection of intellectual property rights is weak, which can be seen from the large number of pirated printed books on the market in Pakistan. Pakistan's legal protection of intellectual property rights needs to be improved. This is extremely detrimental to the protection of foreign funded firms, especially affecting the science and technology and brand Australia firms, and weakening the innovation incentives. Yes, that's all of my part, and now welcome to my teammates.
Then I will answer question 2. I will analyze Pakistan's economic and human development levels and explain which development indicator is more important for Australian firms considering business entry in Pakistan. From an economic development perspective, Pakistan is classified as a lower middle-income economy. As shown in the chart, Pakistan GDP per capita in purchasing power terms is around $6,000, compared with over $50,000 in Australia. This large gap suggests that income levels remain relatively low. In addition, recent inflation has exceeded 20%, creating uncertainty for firms. As a result, GDP figures may overstate Pakistan's short-term attractiveness for foreign businesses. In terms of human development, Pakistan records a relatively low Human Development Index. According to the chart, Pakistan's HDI is approximately 0.54, while Australia's is close to 0.95. This gap reflects limitations in education, healthcare, and workforce skills. These human capital constraints directly affect productivity and management efficiency for firms. Economic and human development indicators capture different dimensions of development. GDP focuses on income and output, while HDI reflects capabilities and well-being. For example, Pakistan has a large population and market potential, but its lower HDI suggests weaker operational conditions. Therefore, GDP signals market size, whereas HDI signals business feasibility. For Australian firms, the Human Development Index is the most important indicator. Lower HDI is associated with weaker workforce skills, which increases training costs and coordinational difficulties. This is why HDI provides more relevant information than GDP for firm-level decision-making. Australian firms depend heavily on skilled labor and efficient work practices. The data show that labor productivity in Pakistan is significantly lower than in advanced economies. Human development supports innovation and organizational performance. Economic growth without sufficient human capital limits sustainable outcomes. As a result, HDI provides a stronger basis for long-term strategic decisions. In conclusion, economic indicators highlight potential opportunities, but human development indicators determine feasibility and risk. For Australian firms considering entry in Pakistan, human development is a decisive factor. That's all for the question 2.
Now I will talk about cultural distance between Pakistan and Australia. To do this, ever used two main theory, which are Hofstede's cultural dimensions and Hof's context theory. These theories will help explain the key cultural differences between the two countries. First at all, cultural distance refers to differences in values, behavior, and communication styles between countries. In international business, these differences are very important because they can affect communication, management, and decision making. Looking at the Pakistan, Hofstede's theory shows a high power distance culture. This means that hierarchy and authority are generally accepted. In addition, family and group relationships are very important, so decisions are often influenced by social and family expectation. In contrast, Australia has a low power distance and highly individualistic culture. People value equality and independence, and employees are more comfortable expressing their opinions. As a result, individual decision-making is strongly encouraged. According to Hall's theory, Pakistan is a highly context culture. This means communication is often direct, indirect, and relationship-based. People really on nonverbal cues, and maintaining harmony and respect is usually more important than being direct. On the other hand, Australia is considered a low context culture. Communication is usually direct, clear, and task confused. People prefer saying exact what they mean in order to avoid confusion. When combining Hofstede's and Hall's theories, it becomes clear that the cultural distance between Pakistan and Australia is quite significant. Differences is both values and communication styles can create challenges in cross-cultural business interactions. However, it is important to note that culture is not fixed. Due to globalization, education, and multinational companies, some business practices in Pakistan are becoming more similar to Western countries, and at the same time, this theory can be too general and may not present everyone. Overall, well, there is some cultural convergence. It is quite limited. Deep-rooted traditions and social values means that the two countries remain more different than similar. In conclusion, using Hofstede and Hall's frameworks shows that there is a large cultural distance between Pakistan and Australia. Although globalization has led to some similarity, major differences in values and communication styles still exist. Therefore, understanding these differences is essential for Australia business operating in Pakistan.
Hi everyone, my name is Hao Wenduan. Today I will be addressing question 4 using Pakistan as my choosing country. This question asks which industries Pakistan should specialize in according to Ada Smith and David Richard, and which theory the Pakistan government should follow when engaging in international trade. Adam Smith's theory of absolute advantage argues that countries should specialize in producing goods that they can produce more efficiently and at a lower cost than other countries. According to this view, international trade allows countries to benefit by focusing on what they do best and exchanging surplus production with others. Using Adam Smith's framework, Pakistan show clear absolute advantages in serve traditional industries. First, textile and apparel are Pakistan's most significant strengths. The country is one of the world's largest producers of cotton, has an established textile supply chain, and benefits from relatively low labor costs. Second, Pakistan has a strong absolute advantage in agriculture, in products, particularly in products such as rice, wheat, and sugar cane. These advantages stem from favorable climate conditions and a large agricultural workforce. Finally, leather and basic manufacturing industries also align with Smith's theory as Pakistan can produce the goods at lower absolute costs than many developed economies. David Richards' theory of comparative advantage takes a different approach. Rather than focusing on absolute efficiency, Richards argues that countries should specialize in industries where their opportunity cost is lowest. Even if a country is less efficient overall, it can still gain from trade by focusing on activities where it sacrifices the least. From comparative advantage perspective, Pakistan's strengths are even clear. Pakistan has a large and growing labor force, meaning the opportunity cost of labor-intensive production is relatively low. As a result, labor-intensive manufacturing, particularly textile and garments, remains a logical area of specialization. In addition, Pakistan is developing a comparative advantage in service, especially IT outsourcing and back office service. These sectors require lower capital investment than heavy industry and align well with Pakistan's young English-speaking population. While Adam Smith's theory helps explain Pakistan's current export structure, David Richards' comparative advantage theory is more appropriate for guiding policy decisions. Pakistan does not possess the capital, technology, or infrastructure to compete directly with advanced economies in high-tech or capital-intensive industries. By following comparative advantage, Pakistan can pursue realistic and sustainable growth, reduce unemployment, and integrate more efficiently into global markets. In conclusion, Adam Smith's theory explains why Pakistan excels in traditional sectors such as textiles and agriculture. However, David Richards' theory of comparative advantage provides a more flexible and development-friendly framework. Therefore, Pakistan should focus on labor-intensive manufacturing and emerging service industries, using trade as a pathway towards long-term economy development.
Hello everyone, I'm responsible for Part 5 Pakistan Trade Policy Tools and Analysis. The first section is the Pakistan Trade Policy Instruments. Pakistan implement a trade policy system based on selective government intervention. As a developing country with a large population and employment competition, it has long been constrained by structural challenges. And also there are important tariffs, export subsidy, and non-tariff barriers. For important tariffs, the government implements differentiated tax rate across various industries and introduced anti-dumping measures in some sectors to protect domestic producers. And for export subsidy and incentives, The government prioritized supporting industry with strong competitive potential, such as textile and garments. And in terms of non-tariff barriers, Pakistan may adopt measures like important licensing requirements, technical and quality regulatory standards, custom procedures, and administrative control. And now going into the second part is the trade policy and theories. The first theory is the trade protection and industry protection theory. Many firms in Pakistan are at a disadvantage in terms of technology, capital, and scale, so target policy support are necessary to help them gradually build competitive capabilities. And the second is the strategic trade theory. The Pakistan government selectively supports sectors crucial for export, employment, and macroeconomic stability, such as the textile industry, cement, and other primary manufacturing sectors. And also, finally, the comparative advantage theory. Pakistan possesses relative good labor resources, but limitations in capital and technology. Its continued support for labor-intensive industries aligns with the logic of the comparative advantage theory, particularly from differences in factor endowments. And now is the third part is the policy examples. There are two main examples. The first representative is the second phase of the China-Pakistan Free Trade Agreement, which was signed in 2019 and officially came into effect in 2020. According to the agreement, China immediately waived the tariff on 313 key export produce from Pakistan, and both sides committed to gradually achieving trade liberalization for approximately 75% of the tariff items. This directly serves Pakistan's export-ordered strategy and help it integrate into regional and global value chain. The second example is the Pakistan Textile and Clothing Policy 2020 to 2025. This policy industrialized a range of incentive measures. These include export tax rebates and regionally competitive energy pricing for export-ordered firms. In summary, for Australian companies interested in Pakistan, the local market is influenced by trade protection and regulatory politics. However, firms that understand and adopt the policy environment can still capture the business opportunity in government-supported sectors. That's all for our point and is our reference. References. And also it's all for our presentation. Thanks you very much.